Here we go. I'd like to call to order the Monday, April 2nd meeting of the Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Kitzlar.
Here.
Alder Moore. Here. Alder Kuhr.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Alder Spate.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 19th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or additions, corrections? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Item D, appearances. We have 2 appearances. If anyone else would like to make an appearance, please fill out a slip on the table. First up is Scott Kelly of 5103 Tony Watha Trail, who would like to speak against the parks budget. Scott, if you could go up to the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. I live at 5103 Tony Watha Trail, as mentioned, and there's a little spit of land down the street from us a ways. It's called Wild Haven Park, 0.26 acres to be exact. And it's a neighborhood park, and that neighborhood park, it's defined as a neighborhood park versus a community park under the park and open space plan. You know, it's used primarily by the neighbors. In the winter, it's a pretty good access for some ice fishermen, but other than that, it truly is a neighborhood park, and we enjoy it. We use it quite a lot. You know, I represented maybe a number of people that we got an email out to the other day asking them if in our neighborhood whether they were aware of the improvements coming to Wild Haven Park. And like us, no one was aware of the improvements that were coming. They're quite extensive. But, you know, my question is, why weren't in a neighborhood park where, you know, defined by your code, it's a quarter-mile service area, that's only a few blocks going each way, why wasn't anybody notified about a park that looks like in the budget it's going between $140,000 and $150,000. And now it sort of feels like, at least I've heard it from a lot of people, that, hey, it's too late to stop this train now. It's already happened. But I don't understand why the Parks Board doesn't notify neighbors when a neighborhood park is going to be renovated or redeveloped. Why their input in the neighborhood wouldn't be, you know, a good thing to have when looking for future amenities to the park. And the only thing I can come up with is they didn't want our input. Because I think if they wanted it, they would have asked and they would have noticed. I mean, right now, there's a sandwich board out in front of the park saying construction beginning now, and you know, pretty picture of all the things that are happening. It would have been great if a sandwich board was put up there saying, hey, we're thinking about making some changes here. Do you want to come to a meeting? People that use the park would know that. But, you know, there was no input allowed by neighbors of this park. So, I just, as the city ponders continuing to increase some of the budgets for these parks, in particular Wild Haven, a really small park, now home to a pretty elaborate plan, at least per the square footage, and a 60-foot pier going off from there. I'd just say, you know, maybe step back a little bit and see if the Parks Board have they really reached out to the neighbors in that neighborhood. Just ask for your consideration on that, and maybe future consideration on communications to neighbors.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next is Jane Coleman of 5209 Tony Watha, also to speak against the Wild Haven Park plan.
I'm Jane Coleman. I live just up the street from Wild Haven Park. And I, too, was amazed when I drove by the other day and saw something was going on and stopped and read the signpost. I live at 5209, just a few blocks up, and several years ago I was enlarging my deck. And in order to do so, all the neighbors were notified, and we had due process. And some neighbors criticized it, and so we had to go through and change the proportions of the deck. This was just on my little lot, which is, by the way, the size of Wild Haven Park. So as I began to ask around, saying, well, did we go through this process as we did at my house? And we didn't. And I'm just very surprised. It's a wonderful neighborhood. We all love Monona. You do, and I do. But this isn't right. It's to go forward so fast before we've had a chance to look at it. Remember, it's a very small lot, and it's a very big pier and deck. And I can't imagine that I would have been allowed to do that at my house on the same wattage as Monona has decided to do there without anybody having any input. I don't know that we're against it. I just don't think we ever were asked. And it worries me to have that kind of traffic on a little lake with very small lots. So I hope that there's some way we can take a step back and listen to the reasons. I'm sure they're very good. Listen to some alternatives. I think we all want the same thing. We love Monona, but I think this got shoved a little too fast. And I hope you'll be able to think of a way that we can back off, take another look, and go forward with something that will be really appropriate for the whole neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Since this isn't on the agenda, we can't discuss this tonight, but Jake, did you have any answers to any of the questions that were brought up?
As most of you are aware, this project was introduced in June of 2017 with our 2018 to 2022 capital improvement budget. It went through 2 readings at the Parks and Recreation Board, 1 reading of Committee of the Whole, 2 readings at City Council budget. It also came back in November at the Parks and Recreation Board for approval of the conceptual plan and City Council for a budget amendment to approve the conceptual plan and budget. So like most of our projects, we don't notice individual neighbors within a certain radius. The parks belong to everyone and all taxpayers, so we do post it on the city websites and all the places that we would normally post for agendas and minutes. So it's up to the citizens to review those plans and make appearances at meetings if they so wish. So I think of this particular park plan, it's probably had more times on an agenda than most of our projects that we have for a capital budget process. And it is scheduled for, the contractors will be out on Wednesday. So we do have an approved plan and an approved contract, and it will be a 8 to 12 week construction schedule. So anticipated completion date is June 15th.
We can take a few questions. Alder Kitzler.
Prior to this, have we had any neighbors or residents of that area talk to us about Wild Haven?
We have had residents, come to meetings regarding the plan and regarding input into the plan, absolutely.
Alder Spate.
Haven't we also had complaints from people in the neighborhood about the condition of this park for a number of years?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, given I think it's probably our best view of the Capitol, and so there was concerns over privatized use of the park, where there's some park damage, and then, requests for improvements to that viewing area of what we would consider probably the best view of the Madison skyline that we have in Monona.
Anyone else? Okay. Alder Wood.
I agree. I mean, this is, we've talked about and addressed really some of these issues at at a fairly recent meeting here. And that it's gone through, you know, the normal vetting process that projects go through, and probably more so than usual, in fact. So I'm okay with this project going ahead. I do think, though, it's not a bad idea for going forward to utilize something like the sandwich board or some kind of notification at a park or other public capital projects, that so that you know, the public, whether it's the neighborhood or other members, know that some significant capital project's being proposed before, you know.
No, I think that's a great idea. There's other municipalities that do that put up, you know, public information signs at that individual location.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have the time to be able to do that for all the projects
Right.
that we have, and certainly I think it can be an item that we can make sure that we're addressing as we move forward with our capital budget process.
Right. No, I agree. I was, you know, looking at the 2018 capital project summary, and it would be, I think, challenging for the staff to do the notifications for all or most or even half of the projects, because we just don't operate with excess staff capacity. So anyway, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. 2 items also under appearances, and I guess I will just read these. Number 1, a proclamation declaring April 27th, 2018 Arbor Day in the city of Monona. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the city of Monona has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now, therefore, I, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor of the City of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 27, 2018 as Arbor Day in the City of Monona, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodland. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Signed in the City of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, this 2nd day of April 2018, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor. And then we have a second proclamation declaring May 12, 2018 as Migratory Bird Day in the City of Monona. Whereas migratory birds are some of the most beautiful and easily observed wildlife in our communities, and whereas many citizens recognize and welcome migratory songbirds as symbolic harbingers of spring, and whereas these migrant species also play an important economic role in our community, controlling insect pests and generating millions in recreational dollars statewide, and whereas migratory birds and their habitats are declining throughout the Americas, facing a growing number of threats on their migration routes and in both their summer and winter homes, and whereas public awareness and concern are crucial components of migratory bird conservation, and whereas citizens enthusiastic about birds, informed about the threats they face, and empowered to help address those threats can directly contribute to maintaining healthy bird populations, and whereas since 1993, International Migratory Bird Day, IMBD, has become a primary vehicle for focusing public attention on the nearly 350 species that travel between nesting habitats in our communities and throughout North America and their wintering grounds in South and Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean, and the southern U.S. And whereas hundreds of thousands of people will observe IMBD gathering in town squares, community centers, schools, parks, and nature centers to learn about birds, take action to conserve them, and simply to have fun. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor, do hereby proclaim May 12, 2018 as International Migratory Bird Day in the City of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, and I urge all citizens to celebrate this observance and to support efforts to protect and conserve migratory birds and their habitats in our community and the world at large. Signed in the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, this second day of April 2018. Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor. Now I need a big drink. Okay, there is no public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item G1, unfinished business. Consideration of Resolution 18-3-2251, approval to contract with Maggie B. Communications for municipal communications consulting services put forth by the city administrator. Is there a motion to approve this?
I'll move to approve it.
I'll second.
Administrator Little?
We're recommending approving Maggie B for this contract work. It will be for phases 1 and 3, the communications needs assessment and branding work. This was the second lowest bid, and there was a question about the schedule. It looks like the process would take about 4.5 months, which should probably be fine because we don't usually bring the operating budget to the mayor for review until late September, so I think you should have enough time to get it through. And she does plan to start working on this project right away. In fact, we'll be meeting on Thursday to start laying out the process in a little bit more detail.
Any questions? No, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I'm going to move around the agenda under new business just a little bit so we can get the fire department back to the fire station. So we're going to move item G2J up to the top. Consideration of Resolution 18-4-2255, purchase of approval of a 2018 Braun 169-inch XL Chief Type 3 ambulance. Is there a motion to take this out of order for immediate approval?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to?
I'll second.
Okay. Chief Sullivan?
Thank you, Mayor. This is for the approval to purchase the new ambulance to replace our current backup ambulance. The bids came in at 194,358, and that includes the concession from the manufacturer and the trade-in of our current backup ambulance. So, the budget was initially 200,000. We're looking to keep the budget money still at that 200,000 for possibly a 3D camera system to go that captures everything on the exterior of the vehicle. If the vehicle happens to get into an accident, it records everything similar to the squad cars that they have, and also some of the just small mounts and that type of stuff to get the ambulance up and operational.
Any questions? We talked about this quite a bit before this meeting, so. Okay, hearing no questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, we need a roll call. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Alder Spate.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kitzler.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Coor. Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Now we will move back up to item G2A, convene in closed session under Wisconsin statute section 19.85, paren I, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. This is concerning the West Broadway Hotel Associates LLC development agreement. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Spate.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kitzler.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Coor. Aye.
We are in closed session. Consideration of Resolution 18-4-2261, approving a development agreement with West Broadway Hotel Associates LLC, Community Development Authority. This was covered in the closed session. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, then we'll move on to item D. Consideration of Resolution 18-4-2260, approving a conceptual plan for the Riverfront Public Park Plaza, put forth by the Riverfront Park Plaza Ad Hoc Steering Committee. I think we all have a map here to.
Are we doing a motion or no?
Pardon?
This is first reading.
This is first
Oh,
read.
first read, okay. So thank you for taking the time to look at these materials. The ad hoc committee's been working very hard, I think, over the last couple meetings, given the tight timetable to come up with conceptual plans for the Park Plaza. And so we have Dean Proctor here from Vanderwall is going to do a presentation on kind of start to finish, and then Doug Paul from R.O. Eberly Architect will do a brief presentation of the shelter conceptual design. So I'll turn it over to Dean, and then after that I have just a quick one myself. So we'll have three of us, but we'll be free. Yes. That was.
Everyone should have a 11 by 17 copy of the plan in front of I think my focus tonight will be on the design. This is the ad hoc steering committee's plan and presentation to you, but we'll focus in on the design so that you know the proposal, the scope of the project, all the elements of the project. I first wanted to point out the uniqueness of this project because of its location where it is. I couldn't resist doing this graphic that shows your already wonderful park system and how this will be a new addition to this, but that this project is pretty unique. It's not another park, just a park. It's a public space. It's not a standalone place. It's with visible new development along Broadway, and it's at this prominent location at the southwest corner of your community. I'm sure you're all familiar with the site and how this is part of a project working with a developer expanding Metropolitan Lane. It's on the river, Yacht Club to the north, and with the mixed-use projects there to the south. There's a framework for budget. There's a requirement for a certain amount of expenditure. A couple things that will be a part of this, related to this project, are the boardwalk contribution and the build-out of the shelter for the park office and concession. And the city is pursuing other sources for funding beyond this requirement through the developer agreement. On the timeline, we're at the beginning of April and right on schedule with the timeline. So we're, now the timer's on this, sorry. So we're at this point where we've worked with the steering committee, developed alternatives, and presenting you with a plan for the first reading tonight. This is this first phase where we're presenting kind of a schematic design, and there'll be more final design later. Again, we met, I believe, 4 times with the steering committee, and before that they met as a group and developed a vision and programming ideas, design concepts, and the list there, as you can see, all the ingredients in the plan that are included. All this to create what we can see as a great public space that can become Monona's iconic riverfront, and it supports the immediate private and residential uses, but perhaps more importantly provides a public gathering place for daily activities, programmed activities, and special events. There's lots of opportunities here. Obviously, access to the river, a new street frontage, relationship to the new development here, the park facilities with the restroom and the concessions, a new restaurant and event space here, and then chances to create an urban park near the street, a place for seating, a central green, activities on the river, and access to and from the river. So this is the plan in context with the yacht club to the north, Metropolitan Lane here. The strategy to the site was to use this north edge for stormwater, to be a place where bikes and boats can be stored, and to have a fence or screen that screens this and provides a backdrop for the place. And again, on the south side, we made efforts to work to coordinate a lot of events, a lot of activities that will be in this park plaza related to the park concession and restroom here and the restaurant and event space here. So a lot of thought was given to what's going on in the park and plaza adjacent to those uses. Rather than just walk through piece by piece and describing what each of the plan is, I just wrote a quick little story here. I'm going to ask you to imagine walking through the place. So imagine a new metropolitan lane, active people crossing the street and arriving by bicycle, a unique art feature, and I'll point them out here a little bit. Oh, on the screen? Okay, that makes more sense. I can, that's great. So a unique art feature announces the park to the street and leads the eye to the site. A shady area that feels like an urban park with people reading, eating, working, playing chess, and tables, an interesting curvilinear bench, and a unique suspended seating offering 3 choices for how to relax in this urban streetfront park. Walking to the bend in the park, we notice a park facility enclosed in the new development, with future events announced in the window and people coming and going with games or skates, depending on the season. Then an area with stone paving right at this elbow, with fun movable seating used by individuals in small groups to sun, to read, and to chat. At dusk, we see a small friendly fire flickering, with people relaxed and laughing, gathering around a fire pit. Before us opens up a green, where people are walking, playing, lying on the turf and reading, and chasing a toddler across the lawn. You've seen exercise classes, small events, and outdoor movies here on weekends and summer evenings. One can imagine this lawn full with the same families in the winter when a sheet of ice draws people to an active winter scene with skaters, draped lights, fire pit, and steaming cups of hot chocolate from the park concessions. All of this backdrop with an attractive fence screening the yard of the adjacent yacht club. At the end of the green, you notice a simple raised deck sitting on it, with people sitting on the edge, watching the green in one direction and the river in the other. You've heard musicians play a time or two, mellow groups playing early so it doesn't disturb the nearby residents. You also notice some backpacks and sweatshirts lying on the stage deck. As you walk a bit further, there is a riverfront yoga class in session with the leader on the stage and students in form on the deck looking over the river beyond. As you arrive at the deck and look down at the river landing, you see people sitting on the deck edge, right at this point, talking and watching the paddlers and the river flow. People beyond are pulling some small kayaks off a rack and rolling them down to the river's edge. A small group is gathering for a summer evening paddle on the Eway and the chain of lakes. You arrive at the river, lean on the rail, and reflect on all the new activity in Monona's new riverfront community place. The appearance of this and how this will be made, there will be standard concrete walkways, colored concrete areas that designate special places within the Yahara Commons, stone pavers along the river and at the fire pit, and then wood decking where people are actually sitting and lying down and using the spaces in that way. The landscape materials, the large green and turf, ground cover in certain areas under the tree, the bosque of trees along the street front might look similar to this, honey locust or maple, and then some ornamental trees, river birch or serviceberry, and then some perhaps bioswale planting materials along the north edge of the of the space. So just quickly going through each area and pointing out the individual pieces. A bike harbor, it was stressed how important this could be. Perhaps a B-cycle station where people can arrive from the regional trail that ties into this site. So a bike harbor here. These are the unique seating options, suspended seating under the trees, a curved seat, some tables under the trees, all of this forming a bosque of trees, a shady place. This kind of shows that scale of people under the trees here playing chess, reading, the walking loop here, seating, special seating under some more trees here, an art feature here in the bike harbor and the stormwater management. Just images of what this might look like, the bosque of trees, people sitting, gathering, eating, working. The green in the center can have open space, a lot of flexibility here in its use, so hopefully it'll get used in a lot of different ways. Open play, gathering for a movie or for music, small events. And then the deck and the landing. This is the stage that's raised slightly, the deck, that this is all one surface, so it's accessible. Some additional seating at the edge, similar to Memorial Union Terrace, where people sit on steps near the water's edge. And then looking down on the landing where the the boats can come and go and people can walk this loop down by the river as well. This shows the raised stage that works in two directions, towards the green and towards the deck for multiple uses, and the landing and down to the water. So uses at the landing and the deck. The screen fencing might look similar to this, an attractive fence with panels that screen most of the activity and the visual clutter on the other side to the north of the site. Perhaps it could be green. Perhaps harbors or shelters for the bikes and possibly for the boats as well. A fire pit, some specialized seating around which people can gather in the winter and summer evenings. Tables under the bosque of trees, some integrated, interesting seating along the curvilinear paths, and some specialized seating that might be your Adirondack chair that you already used, or some boat-inspired seating. And then the importance of lighting to make this a special place at night, landscape lighting, and this type of lighting with poles and this kind of draped marquee type lighting. And then some special features, and not any one of these would be the ones exactly used, but some ideas for some unique seating that people might talk about. The idea of the sheet of ice that's not a place for rough hockey games, but more family-oriented, large enough for families to skate around day and night with concessions from the stand. And then one of the components that could be a later phase or some kind of art feature that might make reference to the history of the area, to Monona, but focus as a feature for the park. I'm going to go back to the main plan and open it up to questions.
Questions, anyone? Brian?
I think it's impressive, given the sliver of land. And earlier tonight we were talking about another sliver of land that I think is a comparable size park. And we've talked about that park in a smaller amenity and kind of benefiting the larger community. And there's a lot in a small space. And I like how the group and the design has done a nice job of detailing out some different components of the park, but how they work together. Overall, I think it looks great at this phase. And thank you for all that worked on this subgroup. So.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to point out that there's that Jake snuck in something into this drawing that he was hoping that none of you would see, so I'm going to point it out. And that is the city boat that is on the dock.
Oh, yeah.
That has not been part of our committee deliberations. It's just been in Jake's dreams. So just wanted to.
So that's a typical recreational activity for cities, is to offer boat rides at night.
Yes.
And so maybe there's a possibility.
Yeah.
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 Do we envision actual tables in the park? I mean, you've referenced chess a number of times, and
It
I
was
think
just
it's-
mentioned in the committee a number of
Okay,
times, but the tables
okay.
could be used, and there could be game boards and other things at the park office, at the park concession, that people could take and use and come
Okay.
back.
Or, Chad, certainly, I mean, there are, Chicago is a perfect example. They have chessboards and game boards that are literally painted, just like the ping pong table that we have
Yep,
at the
yep.
Ridge Park now.
Yep.
So.
Anyone else? Doug?
It looks great. It also looks really expensive. So I don't know what the budget is for it, but that's yeah. So.
We'll show the latest, this plan was revised. We just had a calculation of the cost estimate, and it's almost 1.4 million.
Like I said, is that with or without Jake's boat?
That's
You could
without
just,
Jake's
don't you have a
boat.
boat? You can bring your own boat.
And it includes over $200,000 for the ice rink. And if you look at the site utilities, the core things that are needed, the walkways, the green, the hardscape, most of the seating and everything, it's quite a bit less than that. It's about $900,000. So the special features are almost $500,000. The art feature, the ice. I think irrigation was one of those options for $50,000. So we kind of divided it into those three pieces. So you could get a basic park without a lot of bells and whistles for under $1 million.
Okay. I had a question for the city attorney. How much are we obligated under the development agreements to spend on the park, or is it just on public improvements total?
No, we're obligated to spend $1.1 million. However,
On the park?
on the park.
Okay.
However, there are items that we would spend that would be credited against that 1.1. For instance, whatever cost we incur to build out the park shelter, that would go towards to satisfy the $1.1 million. The boardwalk along the river, the contractor is going to build that. However, we're obligated to reimburse him $55,000 of that cost. That cost would be attributed to the 1.1 million. So there are several things that would deduct from that. The city could certainly choose to spend more.
Right, yeah.
Just to satisfy the development agreement, you're looking at 1.1 less what you spend on those items.
Okay, thank you.
Ted?
I just wanted to mention now, while we're at the conceptual phase, and since I'm no longer on the Parks Board, I know in the past sometimes, we've had tiles and things like that, which we use as fundraisers to allow people in the community, businesses and individuals to throw in additional funds to finance a special feature. And I encourage that. I think that's a great thing to think about doing in this park. I would also caution that we need to make sure that we're collecting a lot more money than we're going to have to spend to show these people's contributions. And one of the things that I think happened with the park in at Winnequa is that as we've had to think about making improvements to that park shelter, the tiles themselves become an impediment to keeping it upgraded. And so let's do it right, but let's think about that.
At the last Riverfront meeting, we decided that it would be perfect to be the Hamburg ice rink, actually. So,
That's great. Well, and the boat, since we talked about the boat, the boat could be something that just has a placard on it with all the people that have given money to have a city boat. Just throwing it out there.
I like the way you think, Alderstate. So, with kind of the uniqueness of this project and having an ad hoc steering committee, we thought it would be wise to make sure everyone that's on city council knows what the plan is and has some kind of consensus as we move forward and get into those detailed design drawings as we move for a capital budget request. We also have a May 1st deadline for some DNR grants. And so at the next council meeting, we'll have a resolution to allow the city to apply for those grants. In discussion with our grant specialists, there's 3 main grants that we would be looking at for this project. And depending on what components of the project that we're comfortable with, we're looking at a request of somewhere between $250,000 and $400,000. So these are discussions that I had with our grant specialist, showed her the plans and said, this is what we're looking at, this is where it's located, access to the water. What do you think are some realistic numbers that we can deal with as far as what our request would be, given that this is, a fairly expensive project. So that deadline's May 1st, and then there's a review period, there's an award in August. And so that does match up quite nicely with our budget schedule as we look at, okay, what are we comfortable with given what the development agreement is, what are the other proposed projects scheduled for the 2019 capital budget, and where are we at with potential other funding sources. So as Doug will review the shelter, and then I'll talk a little bit about the ice rink. That's one potential other funding sources, is do we want to encourage a naming rights for some of these big ticket items like an interactive art feature or the ice rink. So we still have to come up with a name for this park plaza, and I don't certainly think that would be something that would be for sale, but certainly amenities within the park system, especially if it's a $200,000 art slash interactive feature, or a $250,000 ice rink. And so I think based on this design, we had R.O. Eberly hired, who's done a lot of work for us in the past, to kind of look at what this concession restroom facility would look at, given that we're anticipating programming this park all 4 seasons. And so we would have attendants working nights and weekends in this building. In the summertime, we would be selling ice cream out of the concession stand. We would be renting out some of these chess pieces or dominoes that you could have. We would be moving these interactive seating arrangements and really having almost a park caretaker. So given that it's a small park, there's a lot in this park, and it's going to be kind of like, it's going to be held up to a higher standard level of maintenance than what we have at other parks. And so that's kind of what Doug was dealing with, as far as this is what we're looking at doing, and now we want to design a space that will serve the park, but will also serve park and recreation programs, senior center programs, private rentals, business retreats, city meetings, for example. And so I think we accommodated a lot with that. And we'll bring that up here. Skiing, get me out of there. I know that's Doug can help me.
Oh, you're looking.
Or wait, here we go.
It's like a Nintendo. Pull it out.
Okay.
You got the renderings in here too?
Yeah.
Let's open it up here.
So the development agreement included the park building, the restrooms, and then a park storage area. And so the park building and the restrooms are attached to each other, and then there's a main utility room for the development, and then past that is where our storage area would be. So we'd be able to store equipment and some supplies in that room.
Sure. Can I borrow your laser? We started off with just kind of an empty space and then a block of restrooms. And one of the first things that we did to try to improve the functionality was to create kind of a connection between the restroom space and the area here that we're calling the concession area. This could be closed off with a secured panel, like a barn door, but we want to keep access to the restrooms even if this space is not open. So that was one of the key ideas that we started with. Then we looked at, how do we accommodate ice skate rentals? And I think during the summer months, it looks like we're creating kind of a specialized space for ice skate rentals. I also think that there's a lot of other functions that area could serve. And especially if there's all these different activities going on in the park, there's lots of different types of things I think you could rent, or other ways that could serve the users of the park. But the primary design is for cubbies for storing rental ice skates. And then there's lots of bench area around there for people who are changing in and out of their shoes. We've got a little piece of bench along the wall here, and then kind of a game storage shelf here. That could be games for inside the space here, or, like we were talking about, chess or something that people want to take out to the tables. This is just the utility space in the corner. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So you can see we've got a little mop sink, furnace, water softener, stuff like that. And then over here is kind of the main concession area. So storage for food and containers, ice cream vendor, like a retail display for treats, counter space, and a bunch of all the apparatus that you'd need to run the kitchen. This is not a table. This is the menu board that showed up in the floor plan by accident, so I apologize. This is all open space here. And then Nancy did make the comment at our Parks Board meeting that picnic tables are difficult for people with mobility issues, so we'll be looking at different kind of seating than picnic tables. We just thought you could make these really neat, like picnic tables, out of some of the slab oak pieces that we are going to harvest from some of the tree work you've been doing. And we'll see that in the renderings, but we can do just other kinds of tables with that too. So, and then just some fixed seating along the wall here. It's a really efficient way to do seating. These tables could be smaller tables and more adjustable, and then a fireplace kind of here in the middle. So that's the floor plan. So you can kind of see here some of the we're looking at in terms of a material palette. It's still being developed, but kind of looking for kind of a darker space, a little bit rustic, a little bit contemporary, something that goes with the park. We've got these neat tiles that have like a cool cast concrete texture, and then you can see all these big thick oak slabs that make up all the countertops. You can see the cubbies. And then the whole floor at this point, we're looking at kind of like a rubber floor that is made for ice skate environments, so you can walk on it without damaging it. It's also really durable for regular use. So, and then looking back the other way, you can see the kind of like a menu concession area, and then the bathrooms through the hallway beyond. So it's not a very big space, but I think we're going to get a lot of function out of it, and I think it's going to be a nice support piece for the park. It's much cooler than most parks have as an amenity. So,
Questions?
did I miss
anyone?
anything, Jake? Yeah, there is one other space that we're working on, and that's just this other end of the kind of this sliver of space that they've given us, because the space in between these is not ours, but this would be where maintenance vehicles go. So if there is ice, there'd be an ice maintenance vehicle in here, and then there'd be some other kind of like park tractor that can haul garbage and dirt and tools. And then we'll also be able to house some of our utilities in here. There'd be like an air conditioning compressor and stuff like that we have no other place to put, that keeps the concession area cool. So this is kind of like a garage type space. So any questions?
I have to say, I'm impressed at all the stuff you got in that space. I was not expecting. I know, I saw this a while ago, but it's kind of amazing what you've done with it. Any questions?
Good. Great. Hey, my pleasure.
Actually, Doug, at the Parks meeting, I think it was Tony, who also asked about
Very good question.
whether or
So-
not we could shrink the concession area, because he felt like it was taking up a lot of space, given that the space is so tiny.
So
Did you look at that at all?
Yes. One of the reasons behind the size of it is, well, he's worked in private commercial type kitchen environments, and so he's experienced some very small and highly efficient spaces. For a publicly owned concession stand, I wouldn't design spaces like that. You would be limited to first of all, you wouldn't be able to hire anybody who was in a wheelchair or anything like that to work in this space. But also, I think one of the important things to consider is that there is an egress through here to get out from behind here. So part of that large space that's behind the concession stand is also part of the egress. So I heard what he was saying, and Jake and I talked it over, but I don't feel comfortable necessarily like compressing that workspace down much more, because it makes circulation challenging. And it also, again, I think it's kind of, a lot of people are used to working in substandard kitchen environments, but because this is kind of an open work environment and it's run by the public, I think it's got to be larger, so.
And I would just chime in on that. I think one of the biggest challenges we have with the outdoor pool concession stand is the size of it and the ability to not serve people in a fast manner, because we are literally tripping over each other, and having enough storage room. So in that 46 square foot storage facility, that also is going to house our security camera system that we'll have inside the building and out in the park. It will house a sound system so we could make announcements. And at the park, like, Mayor O'Connor, your 1 hour is up for skate rentals. Please come back to the building. And so there are stuff that has to go in this area. And so I think one of the lessons that we've learned from our project is you can never have enough storage, number one, and you can, we would be looking at, on busy weekends or special events, 3 or 4 people behind the counter, getting skates in and out as efficiently as possible for the winter time, and then serving a limited menu of concessions. So we certainly aren't looking at competing with any of the private businesses that are in the development, but since there wasn't going to be any ice cream facilities there, we thought that would be a nice complement to after dinner. You can come down to the park and grab an ice cream cone and walk around and have some seating. And ice cream's good all time of the year. And then warm cookies, ice cream, popcorn, some beverages. So a pretty limited amount that we can get through quickly, as we have what we anticipate kayakers and paddlers in the summertime, bikers, walkers. So the idea is to kind of keep this activity within the park and also be able to utilize this building in a variety of different ways. So between middle school or elementary school trips to the park in the wintertime, between senior programs, recreation programs, birthday parties, meetings, we would be able to utilize this space, I think, in this park quite efficiently and have access to kind of this concession area as well.
And I want to respect Tony's comment too. And I think he was looking at maximizing seating. Mm-hmm. And we'll probably get another chance to talk to the Parks Board about the design. I think the seating area here is not the focus necessarily, because really this is to serve all the patrons of the park. So maybe on a rainy day this is the only popular area, but I do want to be able to serve a lot more people than just can sit in here.
Mm-hmm.
That people that are coming in and out of the park. So I'm kind of looking at 100 kids coming in off their ice skates and just crowding the concession stand and wanting those people to be able to work efficiently. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Anybody else, Doug?
Just a quick question. Where on this plan exactly is that thing, because I see the park concessions and restroom on here. Is that the footprint?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit from what's on that, but
Okay.
for the most part, that's the same spot.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so along with this plan that we heard tonight, and thanks, Dean, for the visual narrative. It sounds like a great place to go. One of the biggest things that we had talked about early on from both the staff point of view and the ad hoc committee point of view was what's a way that we can make this a regional draw in kind of the non-peak season. And I think are the challenges that we have with maintaining an ice rink on the lagoon, but the popularity of ice skating in the wintertime, or especially around the holidays, from Thanksgiving until New Year's Eve, would be a seasonal refrigerated ice rink. And so that was part of one of the initial concepts of could we make a mini Edgewater-esque type of feeling down at this place and really make this a regional destination draw. And so I think the consensus from the ad hoc committee was that there was support for it, and there was also support to look at alternate sources of funding because of the initial expense or the cost of it. I think part of our, at least my viewpoint of from the concession stand to how the lighting works and how this whole thing works, we could really make this a serious destination point if we have ice that we can consistently maintain and run a complete program around it. So I just wanted to show a little bit about what we worked at in the office about what we were looking at. So this is kind of a photo of what we were looking at when we talked about the draped lights, smaller style, a 50 by 100 foot ice sheet.
Which is actually bigger than
Correct.
Edgewater.
Bigger than Edgewater. Edgewater's about 4,000 square feet, so this would be 5,000 square feet. A little bit longer, which is nice. And we just talk about why do we want an ice rink? Well, it's fun, number one. It is a great community benefit for our residents that we can go to dinner and skate. We can teach kids how to skate through learn to skate programs. We can have that as another recreational space and opportunity for residents. It will bring energy in life, not live, to development in wintertime. So that's like the challenging point of any restaurant is the slow time of winter of getting people there. This would definitely bring people in to this development. Definitely an economic development driver from festivals and events that we can work around that, to hotel stays. Many of these seasonal winter ice rinks in metropolitan areas have shown to be economic development drivers. Guaranteed ice, so right, this is like the big challenge with the lagoon is we'll get great ice and we'll have the concessions all lined up and an event scheduled, and then we get 50-degree weather day. And the ice is ruined, and it's tough. We have the built-in shelter and restrooms as part of this, so this is the opportunity to do it right the first time. So the big challenge with the Dream Park shelter is not having the restrooms open in the wintertime. You have this kind of design, easy access into a shelter where you can rent skates and get out to the ice skating rink. This will identify the riverfront as a regional draw. So if you've been to the Edgewater, it is beautiful, it's gorgeous, but it is challenging to get there and find parking. We would be unique in that we would be the outdoor public, truly public facility as an ice skating rink. The extended skating season, Thanksgiving to St. Patrick's Day, is like the ideal. So it's kind of like the pool. We're looking at 100 days of being open. When we run the lagoon, if we have like 5 weekends, I'm happy. Like if we get 5 weekends of good ice skating, I'd be happy. And then we'd have our holiday theme kind of village with lights. So imagine kind of the lit trees in that bosque as you walk around, the draped lights over the ice skating rink. The type of programs that we're interested in is certainly open skate, right? We want to have this open recreational skating, after school skate, learn to skate programs, and that's again, just like our swim lesson program, Learn to Skate. Into the hockey, so with kids hockey or senior hockey, there may be opportunities during the day to accommodate that while there's not general ice skating, although it won't be a main focus. School field trips and educational programs, so certainly with the combination we have and the relationship we have with all the Leopold Nature Center, there's a lot of school groups that go into that facility that could just as easily head over to the riverfront to do ice skating and have their food in the concession stand. Birthday party packages, if you have kids and have to go through the onslaught of kids' birthday parties, this would be an awesome place to have your kids' birthday party and their friends. Themed events, right? Skate with Santa, Fire and Ice Festival, Rock and Skate. So basically we have like a DJ on Friday nights, college night, New Year's Eve are very popular events to have at this facility. Star Wars. And so the ideas are limitless, and I think the cooperation with the restaurant space is going to be paramount if we have this facility, that we can work together on joint programmed events. Learn to curl. So this is like, right, we're just coming off the Winter Olympics. Everyone loves curling. Everyone wants to be in the next Olympics. And so we could run a Learn to Curl event. We've got lots of connections in this area for that. And then private rentals. So these are where your businesses can reward their employees over the holidays. They can have their holiday luncheon, parties, and skate. And so these are the type of programs that we're looking at. So we've already kind of put together a schedule of what we would anticipate. And it's much like the pool, you know, from early morning to late at night, we're going to be having different types of skating. You know, there's space in there for ice prep time. There's weekend rentals, weekend learn to skate. We even put a story time in there that we could work with the public library, you know, skate to a different book, have lots of open skating times, and then some of our programmed activities. And this is the sheet everyone likes to talk about, is the money aspect of it. So just like we do with the pool or any of our other rec programs, we put together an anticipated revenue and expense budget. And so we kind of put all the different revenue potentials that we have. We would be looking at charging a daily admission to get into the skate facility place, skate rental, and skate sharpening. So we'd be able to sharpen your skates at this facility. Season passes, so you could get a season pass and come anytime during open skate. The birthday party packages, private rentals, hockey lessons, ice skate lessons, concessions, field trip programs, sponsorships, which could include sponsorship of the ice resurfacing machine, could be a prorated fee if we do a naming rights of the whole entire facility, and then special events. And so we went through the whole expense category as well. The biggest one being gas and electric. So the chiller can be up to $3,000-$4,000 a month if you get warmer weather. You could still have good ice up to 45, 50 degrees with the chiller. And then, you know, your biggest your biggest cost is going to be personnel. So this is just a kind of a straight income expense. It would, whether or not we have an ice rink here, you know, you've probably heard me say that this park, along with all the improvements that we have, is going to, at least from my perspective, ask for an additional full-time parks maintenance staff, you know, for the 2019 year. But I would say that it doesn't matter if we have the ice rink or not. The demand of what we have to do in all of our park system is there. This would add to it certainly, and we would have to have both our full-time and LTE staff to help maintain it. But this does take direct cost from the concession attendants. You basically have a skate monitor out there, so if there's, you know, kids that are unruly or skating too fast or on direction, or that they have a wristband to make sure that they've paid, it's taken into consideration. Now with this proposal, we do have a consultant that we've received kind of a proposal for consulting work. And so talking with Vanderwall and Strand, you know, designing and looking at specs for a refrigerated ice rink isn't something that's necessarily in the wheelhouse of Strand. And so we would be looking at kind of an expert nationwide that works on putting together proposals, reviews these kind of plans, and that's what I asked them to do, is say, we can come up with an event plan and a budget, but we want you to review it to tell our council, like, hey, this is a good solid plan, these are realistic numbers that I think you guys can achieve in this region. So there is a cost to that. It's $12,500 to bring that consultant in and provide kind of the data on, if this is the route that we'd be looking at. They would develop the specs for the equipment that we would have. They would help with the bid process, and then they would analyze kind of our business plan and go from there. So that's one of the things I would ask you at least to think about before we go to the next meeting is if this is something that the council is interested in doing at the conceptual phase. We still have money in our 2018 capital budget for design work, and that I would ask or recommend that we move forward with that to see what those overall costs are. And in the same token, Alder Moore had asked us to look at looking into whether synthetic ice would be an option at this place as well. And so that's something the consulting firm would do for us as well, is to say, okay, these are the benefits, pros and cons of having a refrigerated ice rink and all that goes into it. These are the benefits and cons of having a synthetic ice rink, and if that impacts any of your budget. So it is a big ticket item, but I think it's an important part of how we can make this whole development in Park Plaza work in the off months.
Questions? No one? Brian?
I think it looks great. I'm the hockey fan, and our police chief could be the monitor of controlling the ice to make sure. But I think it's a great addition to the area, much better than the lagoon. I've been a big fan of the lagoon ice, but that ice, if anybody's been around long enough, has been moved around how many different times to different locations. Winnequa Park, at least 2 different locations. Down in Belle Isle, at least was 1 location. Waterman Way. I mean, we've moved ice around this community trying to find a good location to make good ice, and we haven't been able to find a good solution. And when we've looked at other options at Winnequa Park to make better ice, more consistent, the cost starts to creep up pretty high. I don't know if it's completely equivalent, but it's pretty significant, and it still relies on the weather to contain the ice at the level that we need. So I think this is a better option for us in the long run.
Anyone else? All want some time to think about it? Maybe?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, all 3 of you. Next item, E. Consideration of Resolution 18-4-2256, amending the Design and Construction Administration Services contract with Strand Associates for the Riverfront Development Phase 1 infrastructure, and this is put forth by the Public Works Committee. Dan.
Roads can be pretty cool, too. Never good narrative. Imagine walking down McKenna Road.
Right. Can we hear the story?
It's coming right up. Right now, we have Strand under contract to complete engineering design for Phase 1 of the riverfront development. As you know, the Phase 1 infrastructure is tied to the Phase 1 development, which per the developer's agreement is to be completed somewhere around July 2019. Also, as you know, the Phase 3 property for the hotel, that is now going to be bumped up into the Phase 1 timeframe. So they're looking at August of 2019 being ready to open their doors, and the requirement to have the infrastructure in place. So I have a resolution and a fiscal note in the packet tonight seeking to amend the Strand contract. It's for an additional $70,100, and that's to complete not only Phase 1, but Phase 2 and Phase 3 infrastructure design. That is for the streets, curb gutter, lighting, water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater utilities. I do have a few dates that are kind of tied to this that I think you should be aware of. The 50% design will come before the Public Works Committee 1 month from now, May 2nd. The 50% design will be going in front of the Plan Commission as well on May 14th. Final design will be completed by June 15th. We are going to hold a bid opening July 19th this summer. The Public Works bid approval will be at August 1st meeting, City Council and Finance August 6th, and construction is slated to begin August 15th. So it's a fast timeline for the design to get completed and the bids put out. So
Any questions? None?
this is first reading, so I'll be back.
Okay.
There's no reason to expedite
Chad?
this, is there?
It would give Strand another 2 weeks to get going on design. Right now, they technically can't proceed with design. They're working behind the scenes on some things, but technically they would have to wait till after our next meeting. So
I don't think I'm gonna offend the Parks or the Public Works Committee if we were to go ahead and say yes to this. Do you?
in the past, City Council has made it contingent upon Public Works Committee passing it, so.
I would move to take this item out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll
With the
move-
contingency that the,
Yes, I'll move approval of this item contingent on approval by the Public Works Committee on Wednesday.
I'll second.
Second? Okay. Any further questions? And this one needs a roll call vote. The clerk, please call the roll
Ready, quick?
in a moment.
Okay. Alder Kohler.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Space.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kitzler.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item F, consideration of resolution 18-4-2258, amending the 2018 capital budget to fund various parks projects, put forth by the Parks and Recreation Director, and we talked about this at our last meeting. We wanted an amendment that would explain how we're covering these overruns on park projects.
I got it. Oh. It's a 6. So we have the 3 park projects. On the fiscal note, on the resolution, there's details out, just kind of in words how we're paying for it. But if you look at the next page after is like a Excel worksheet that kind of shows by numbers. So the 3 projects were over by 188,000, basically 189,000 were over budget. So to fund that, we're taking 16,000 out of the boat launch fund balance to reduce the boat launch amount. Then we had a Winneco Park Engineering. The budget was 50,000. We're going to take 40,000 of that and keep $10,000. So we're going to reallocated that 23,000 to the tennis court, $10,000 to the community center improvements, and the remaining to the boat launch. And then, so that covered the tennis courts and this community center improvement. So the remaining came out reduced against the boat launch. So we reduced the fund balance applied against the boat launch of 50,000. And it says loan from general fund, which is the money that's coming out of the fund balance for the general fund. It's about $82,000 that will be paid back from the boat launch fund over the next several years.
And that's with interest, right?
With
Is that
interest.
the amount there that includes the interest?
Yes, yeah, 2% interest.
Is that yearly interest or is that interest overall?
Yearly interest,
Daily.
2%. Annual interest of 2%.
Okay.
Brian?
Given that this was really to clean up our previous discussion about where everything was coming from, I'll move that we suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Is
I'll
there a
move
motion?
approval.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Oh, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore.
Here?
Alder Kohler.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Space.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kitzler.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item G, consideration of resolution 18-4-2254, authorizing a revised engineering and observation services contract for Bridge Road and McKenna Road, put forth by the Public Works Committee. Mr. Stefani.
Thank you, Mayor. This is here for the first reading as well. It's a request to revise the engineering and observation services contract for Bridge Road and McKenna Road. Included in the packet is the resolution and fiscal note and some additional information provided by Strand. In 2015, City Council authorized engineering contract for Strand to begin design on Bridge Road. And in 2016, that contract was amended to authorize engineering for a group of roads to include McKenna. McKenna is the only road that was delayed. The other group was reconstructed last year and is now complete. McKenna has been delayed for various reasons, mainly for the city to decide whether there's going to be sidewalks or a path included with the reconstruction of McKenna Road. Bridge Road has been delayed to coincide with the development of the riverfront development. And that's moving forward now, so we're back with Bridge Road that will be moving forward in 2019. So the resolution discusses that preliminary designs were completed for both Bridge Road and McKenna for a combined expense of $136,000. There's an unspent balance for both of those roads, just shy of $185,000. Both projects are now somewhat moving forward. Bridge Road, final design will be completed here in 2018, reconstruction in 2019, and McKenna Road is looking to have final engineering completed in 2019 and 2020 reconstruction. So the unspent balance for both roads has currently been approved and is in the budget. Looking to spend $93,300 of that already approved money to complete final design on Bridge Road in 2018. And again, like I mentioned before, McKenna, final design in 2019 and reconstruction in 2020. The fiscal note kind of describes the breakdown of the money. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a peek at that, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer the questions, as well as going through the breakdown on the document that Strand provided.
Questions?
Any reason
Chad?
not to move this forward pending approval?
Technically, no, considering that the funds already exist in the capital budget for 2018. The funds requested in the future will be discussed at the 2019 capital budgets and the 2020 capital budgets.
So I'll move to take this item out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Oh, yes, contingent on public works. Approving.
Brian?
So at Finance and Personnel, I tried to simplify all of that into, to help make sure that I understood it and to help make sure that we're all on the same page. Like both these projects we'd already previously talked about and done all the preliminary work, and we were moving to the next stage and they got delayed.
Right.
And now all we're doing is, the McKenna one is just being delayed one more year for the final.
Right.
Bridge is happening with the extended scope.
Right.
And then we'll be back to do the construction costs for 19.
Correct.
Which at 19 we'll also do the additional scope for McKenna and final design because it extends into the 5-point intersection
Correct.
with the school. So like that made it so much more simpler in my head, so I just figured
It's a
I'd share
tough
it with
one,
others.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item H, consideration of resolution 18-4-2257, award of bid for 2018 emergency generator project put forth by the Public Works Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. In your packet, you should have the resolution and fiscal note along with the bid tab for the generator project that we have in 2018. We received bids from 4 companies on March 2nd for the generator project. We will be replacing the generator at City Hall and the generator at Well 3. with diesel generators with automatic switchover. We have the base bid provided by A1 Electric in the amount of $236,400, and we also have 2 bid alternates. The first one for $2,900, and that's to remove the existing generator, and the bid alternate number 2 for $7,600, and that's to remove the pad that it sits on. The limitations of the current generator that we have at well 3 is that it's an old-fashioned PTO engine type system that only supplies power to the booster station. We have nothing that supplies power to the aquifer pump. So putting a new diesel generator there will operate the entire well and the booster station, similar to what we already have at well 2. Replacing the City Hall generator, right now that generator only operates the dispatch center and the garage doors for the fire station. So when we lose power, the rest of the police station, the rest of the fire department, and the City Hall administration is without power. So we're going to have complete power at both facilities. So.
Questions? Anyone? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. And now, last but not least, item H, or item J, the consideration of resolution 18-4-2259, approval of a police school resource officer agreement between the City of Monona, the Monona Grove School District, and the Village of Cottage Grove, put forth by the Public Safety Committee. Chief Ostrenga.
So you saved the best for last.
Yes, we have. Thank
And
you
this
for your
one doesn't even
patience.
cost any money. We started working on this, there's a copy of the resolution in the packet. We started working on this prior to the beginning of the school year. Attorney Cole was able to whip it out and get it back to us really quick, and then it just kind of died somewhere else. But it wasn't our fault. There's no fiscal note. It doesn't cost us any extra money. I'll just go over some of the changes. What happened in Cottage Grove is they were able to hire another officer and dedicate it to their schools in Cottage Grove. So in the past, it was Monona that had the responsibility through the school district of policing both in Monona and Cottage Grove, which is kind of a unique situation. This term of agreement will be for 3 years. So I'm just going to hit some of the high spots. One thing that changed was compensation and cost sharing. In the past, when officers would work like a basketball game or a football game, they were paid a separate check by the school district. The problem with that is that they were not considered to be in on-duty status, so it was sort of a liability for those officers. If they were to become seriously injured or disabled, they were not covered by the same benefits. Now, what the school district is doing is we're paying the officers time and a half through the city, and the school district is then reimbursing the city for whatever those costs are. Primarily, the Cottage Grove SRO will work in Cottage Grove, and primarily the Monona SRO will work in Monona. However, we still want to maintain that relationship where they can work together. If one's on vacation or training, Monona can go to Cottage Grove, and Cottage Grove can come to Monona. So we'll have to probably reword our ordinance to allow for the Cottage Grove police officer to be sworn in as sort of a part-time officer in Monona so they could take enforcement action. It's very rare that that happens. So, and then there's a section here that if other officers are requested to perform duties for football games or basketball games or special events, that we would get reimbursed by the school district. And then the last thing that changed was sort of on the last page of the agreement. It's an indemnification section, and that was requested by CIVMIC, our insurance agency. There had been issues in other jurisdictions where the SROs had taken action and the municipalities had incurred liability. So this would indemnify our city so that if our officers took action, it would be on the school district to be responsible for any claims. So basically that's it. I don't think the names are going to change on the sign-off sheet. I don't recognize any of these that are up for re-election in at least in Cottage Grove or the school board. I think they're all the same. That would be the only thing that would change before the next meeting.
Actually, the school board president will change,
Yeah.
because she's not running
Okay.
again. Any questions, comments? Anyone? None?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we've already covered item J. So we are down to reports of committees, commissions, boards, etc. Alder Coor.
Nothing to report.
Alder Holmquist.
No report?
Alder Spate.
No report.
Alder Wood.
No report.
Alder Kitzler.
The library board is hosting a volunteer and staff appreciation. Hopefully, the library board president sent everybody an email, but certainly all the alders are invited as well.
That's this Thursday?
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
So this Thursday, 6:30, here in the library.
Alder Moore.
Nothing to report.
City Clerk Andrews.
There we go. Today is my 17th year working for the city of Monona. There's still a lot out there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My absolute pleasure and honor. You might have heard there's an election tomorrow, and and also a snowstorm. So we'll see what happens with that, and hopefully our turnout will still remain high. Monona likes to vote, so I'm sure it will. And we are ready and ready for everyone to come to the polls. We're open 7 a.m. until 8 o'clock.
Okay, City Administrator Little? No report. A couple things. We're still working on getting some of these committee reappointments taken care of. Alder Spate, I'd like to speak with you after the meeting. I guess the only other thing is I'd like to wish everybody here who's on the ballot tomorrow good luck. Look for an email from me on Wednesday regarding how I'm going to handle committee appointments, I guess depending on the outcome of the election. So, the only other item is an appointment, Vicki Schultz, Election Inspector, January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a
Move to
motion?
adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and Alderwood can go watch the basketball game now.
Still going on?